Welcome. This is my attempt at a dream sequence in which what I have imagined exists. The problem with dreams is the inevitable reception of blunt force trauma that momentarily stuns you with disappointment as the realization that what was in the dream does not exist in the conscious realm. We all know that attempting to exist in a dreamscape is not practical. I'm partially driven by the pursuit to blur the line between the dream world and the other world. One of the results of this pursuit is losing time consumed with being as productive as possible, obsessing over making as many things as I can and losing track of time in the process. So, inevitably, I became increasingly unaware that I had in fact been imprisoned by my own creative pursuits, where I was held captive until I devised what I thought was a clever solution to address a problem that could not be solved without embarking on some sort of possessed obsession in the pursuit of a solution that would not only be practical, but also unique and subjectively aesthetically pleasing. Now that I'm waking from that self-induced obsession and my eyelids involuntarily peel back from their eyeballs, somewhat like a roller door lifting on my dream workshop, it's only now that I realise I'm well on the journey that is paved with elements quarried from the dream. Due to the complexity of this project and in order to do it justice, I've broken it down into a multi-part series. This project was started on Thursday the 16th of January 2023 at approximately 7:30 a.m. in my workshop, where I voluntarily housed myself as it gradually increased in temperature due to the hot weather. So please forgive me for the intermittently poor sound quality as I used a fan in an attempt to provide a tolerable work environment. It was in these conditions that I began chasing the tail of a vision I had, a vision in which family and friends would gather around a unique dining table I had created to help support the burden of what I imagined would be a sumptuous feast. When I began this project, I knew I'd be confronted with several challenges, so in order to mitigate the potential chaos that lay ahead, I gave myself one overarching challenge that set the tone for the entire design. That challenge was to work within the parameters of pre-dimensioned, off-the-shelf timber, such as Merbau, which happened to align with my meagre budget. I chose Merbau because from my own experience, as long as Merbau is moderately maintained, it can withstand multiple weather-based attacks. Therefore, my concern for the welfare of this table once it's finished is minimal. Plus, although this table will be outdoors, it'll be undercover. Once I've made the template to begin shaping the legs for this table, first I'll use it as a guide to set a demarcation line from where I'll remove the bulk of the material with the bandsaw, reducing the amount of timber for the router bits to remove as they follow the template to leave consistent curves in their wake. Once the curves have been established on all legs, I then begin to gradually apply a large radius and blend one surface with the other, using multiple passes over the router table. At this point, you may not be entirely clear as to what the finished project may look like. This might give you an idea. Before launching into this project, first I built a 1/5 scale model to ensure that I had a decent grasp of how I would actually construct the vision that inspired this project. It's a little rough, but it's an adequate guide to inform the direction of actions I should pursue. The frame on top of the base is a representation of the substrate that eventually, along with a few embellishments, will support the tabletop. The metal washers represent what will be several portholes that will contain and transmit subtle lighting elements intended to enhance the dining experience. Okay, I hope that miniature display brings a little more clarity to my objectives for this project. Now, I'd like to take a moment here to address an issue relating to time. Those of you familiar with my content may have noticed it's been a while since I released a video. The delay came down to an issue of time distribution. Like most of us, I live in the real world where I work a day job to make a living, so my time is divided to optimally address several tasks in a day. One of those allotted subdivisions of time was dedicated to completing multiple jobs around the house. Jobs that have been on the radar for far too long. This is one of them, a handmade cover to house internet hardware. Now's a good time to announce that I do not support or recommend power carving MDF. I almost forgot to mention this project, because I believe in preservation of expensive objects and this project. So you could say I've been busy. You could also interpret the creation of these objects as physical documents of my existence. Anyway, let's get back into it. Driven by the pursuit of a unique external dining experience, I began this project with my standard approach to producing templates. This particular template will be used to form the main contours of the skeletal substructure that will then emphasize those curvaceous features as timber is laid over them, providing a solid skin surface on which more illuminating details are to be added. It is my intention that a series of detailed features will culminate and contribute substantially to the existence of a unique external elevated platform that you can eat off. This template started as a 1/4 section of the curved template shape seen here. Then I duplicated that to make half a template. From that, the other half was taken and placed together to form a whole. Once the whole section had been converted to timber, it became a template in the process that was then used to make one complete duplicate from which the base of this design was formed. The catalyst for this project came from me beginning the process of selling my house. It was during this process that several realtors suggested that I hire an expert to furnish my house. That suggestion would cost me a considerable amount that may or may not have a return on the investment. I rejected the suggestion and paused the sale of my house. Instead, I decided to build my own furniture. I figured that the money would be better used to bankroll the materials required to produce original pieces of furniture I actually need and then take them with me. In the process, I can explore new ideas. Due to the nature of this design, I'm using a lot of screws on this project. Screws give me the flexibility required as I contend with the inevitable issues that will present as I experiment with what I'm attempting to build for the first time. I think of screws as integrated temporary or permanent clamps. It's a thought I find to be very useful when exploring new design ideas. I believe it's beneficial to have full access to the individual components until I'm confident they can be fixed permanently in position. I'd like to acknowledge that it's been a while since I released a long-form video. I'd also like to admit and acknowledge that I've been very productive in that time. Along with attending to household affairs, I also deployed a new task reduction technique I deployed to avoid being crushed by the towering yet majestic stockpile of tasks that seem to self-accumulate. One of the components of this technique is to commit the majority of my free time, if there is such a thing, to address and reduce the stockpile of accumulated jobs down to the sub-levels of measurement where it momentarily remains before the inevitable accumulation occurs yet again. This is one of the realities and part of the price of existence. It's a price I'm very happy to pay. Anyway, I knew this would clear my mind and leave adequate computational real estate to address and complete this project along with other projects that are currently in the planning process. So along with this series of videos, I intend to release another video featuring an indirectly related project topic that is somewhat relevant to the other unreleased project videos. If you like this style of content, be sure to subscribe and watch this space. Just in case you missed the dream sequence at the beginning of this video, here's a sample of it. The introduction was composed using practical effects laced with a modest amount of editing. The circular feature in the introduction was the key that unlocked the entire design and generated an inspirational burst of enthusiasm from which the circular component became the linchpin around which the remainder of the project almost designed and built itself. Once the substructure that will define the base was complete, I headed over to my brother's place and used his table saw to begin breaking down and processing timber. Then I headed back home to refine the components and dress the exposed base. But that's a matter for the next video in this series. As I may have alluded to already, I'm on a tight budget, which is a vital factor to consider. It forces me to think more creatively regarding the formation of the project. So I'm attempting to harvest as much usable material from the accumulating offcuts that have been gaining in abundance since the beginning of this creative operation. Try as I may, releasing content is not without its challenges. I'm just a guy pursuing one of his hobbies within a continually evolving yet modest workshop housed in my garage. It's here I create objects that are compelled by the images that appear in my mind's eye. My earliest memories are of me making things. These memories gradually accumulate, forming a database that feeds the pursuit of more creations, inadvertently developing the skills along the way to bring the dreams and visions I now have to create physical objects that assist my existence. Here I'm working on one of the sections of 4 that will form a supporting backbone. A backbone placed behind each one of the positions where the legs will be attached to make their final stand. Okay, so after all that, the good news is that this project is nearing completion.